Thank you very much for Chairperson. I feel honored to be here to discuss with you of China's population dynamics and its impact on China's development. I know that in the Netherlands there is renewed concerns about the population and its impact on general development. So I hope that my talk on Chinese issues will contribution to the debate happening here. First, I would like to give you some kind of very brief introduction to what is China's population today, what's the basic situation, what's the major problems. Then I will talk about how the Chinese government and the Chinese scholars are debating on whether China should maintain its current population policy or what should be done to change the policy to the other forms. So I was informed I should talk about half hour or at the longest 40 minutes. Then
yes, between half an hour.
Yeah, okay. Then you can raise questions or during my talk, or you can leave your question, put on the question and answer times. Yeah. Now the China's total population now it's about the 1.33 billion by the end of last year. So it's remained as the largest populated country in China. And at this moment, every year there are about 16 million births, and then we have the 9 million deaths. So this gives the natural increase of the Chinese population about 7 million annually. So this figure they also experience some kind of fluctuation over the years. Now in China, we have about 46% of Chinese are classified as urban residents. Then the 54 of them are regarded as rural. But when people use the data about the urban data and the rural data, we must be very careful because this sometimes is subject to the change in the territory or definition of this rural and urban. Chinese population is rapidly aging. At this moment, about 20% of the Chinese are under the age of 15. Then the elderly population aged 65 and over, now it's something like 7.5% among the total Chinese population. Compared to the many European countries, for example, in the Holland, the Chinese population is still very young, but the speed of the aging process is very, very fast. I will talk this later. Now, here is some general population increase over the last 30 years. So we can see the China total population in the 1980, early 1980s, it's something like just 1 billion. Now it's over the last 30 years, now the total population reached the 1.3 and more billions. Then the Chinese population are at this moment is more and more concentrated in the coast areas. So we can see that here is we can draw a line from in the northeast part of China to the southwest part of China. This roughly divided China into the two parts. We can see the overwhelming majority of China living in the southeast part of China, and more concentrated in the Beijing area and the Yangtze River Delta area and the Pearl River Delta area. So these are three bigger metropolitan areas in China, and more people live in this area. Chinese population are more concentrated in these areas. Here is the population dynamics in China over the last 60 years. We can see these are the very high birth rate and the fluctuations during the Great Famine period. So this is the Great Famine period that happened between 1959 to 1961. So these are, in China we call the 3 bitter years. The casualty of this Great Famine, it's still the bigger topic for the academic debate. I did the research in 1984, as quite a long time ago. So my estimation is that during that 3 years time period, roughly about 20 million excess deaths and 20 million excess as a postponement of childbearing. So it's really the bigger casualty happened during this 3-year time period. After this, there was a compensation of fertility in the early 1960s. Then we see the continuous decline of the birth happening in the 1970s. Then we see the fluctuation in the 1980s and the continued decline over the last 20 years. So that's the general situation. In general, we can see that in the 1950s, 1960s, there's a very high birth rate. Then we have the continuous declining of the mortality, except for the special period of the Great Famine period. Then we have the fluctuation period, and then we have this continued decline in the 1990s and in the first 10 years of the 21st century. Then we have the life expectancy at birth in China. We can see this kind of the continuous increase, but the speed is slower. Now, at this moment, on average, Chinese can survive up to 72 years. But of course, here we have the very huge regional diversities. For example, in cities like Shanghai, women can survive the life expectancy at birth in Shanghai is 85 years for Shanghai's woman, 79 years for Shanghai's man. So we are not so fortunate to live longer. But for some other this kind of internal Chinese provinces, like in the Qinghai province, like that in Tibet, the life expectancy is only 6-7 years. So there's a bigger gap between the coastal area and the urban areas and with this inland, remote rural areas.
You just mentioned, said that 85 years life expectancy.
For women in Shanghai.
So this pollution and other things, I mean, of a major city, I mean.
So seems not to affect that. Yeah. So
normally it's taken on
the
rural areas, I mean, they have less.
Yeah. So that's also some kind of myth in China, with the very crowded, very polluted, but people's life is much longer than before. So that's we try to find what's the reason behind these kind of things.
So no stress, nothing is affecting.
Yeah, it's still the case. So that's very similar to what the debate happened for Japan in the 1970s or 1980s. Because in Japan at that time we said that Japan is working very hard. Their rhythm of life there is very faster. Their living space is very small, and also Japan during that time also experienced a very rapid, a very serious pollution. But Japan's life expectancy also increased very rapidly during the 1970s. So maybe it's caused by the public health or by the general living condition, changes of living condition. Yeah. Then something linked to the China's fertility. We can see that in the 1950s, on average, no matter whether you are the urban residents or you are rural residents, on average Chinese family had about 6 children per family. Then also we experience this kind of the fluctuation and the declining of the fertility during the famine years. Then in the urban area, we see the rapid early decline of the fertility in the 1960s. So then we see in the rural areas, the high fertility maintained up to the early 1970s, then dropped very rapidly in the 1970s. Just to remember, in China, the nationwide family planning program was implemented in early 1970s. So that means for the country as a whole, the family planning program really brought about a rapid fertility reduction in the 1970s. But the urban fertility decline happened much earlier than the nationwide family planning programs. So then we, for the more recent years, so that's the problem of the data. So at this moment, it's difficult. Now, the official figure said, in China, the total fertility rate is around 1.7 to 1.8.